The party was in full swing, laughter and music filling the air, glasses clinking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I watched her across the table, the way she tilted her head at every laugh, the way her eyes kept flicking toward her phone like it was some secret lifeline. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe I was just tired, overthinking, but the unease in my chest wouldn't let me relax. She smiled at me, the same smile she always did, but something in it seemed hollow, practiced, like it belonged to someone else for just a moment. I noticed the way her hand brushed against her bag, fingers lingering on something tucked inside, too deliberately to be casual. People around us were dancing, talking, enjoying themselves, but all I could see were the cracks I'd ignored for months. The subtle changes I had buried under love and trust now felt like neon signs flashing betrayal. The way she avoided meeting my gaze for more than a second, the slight hesitation when I spoke her name, the laughter that sounded more like a performance than genuine joy. It all collided into a sharp, gnawing suspicion I could no longer dismiss. I tried to focus on the music, on the hum of conversation, on the clinking of glasses, anything to calm my rising panic, but the unease only intensified. Every laugh she shared seemed a little too loud, every touch a little too distant, and every glance at her phone a dagger twisting in my chest. My mind raced through every party, every dinner, every quiet moment we'd shared, searching for signs I had ignored. And now, in this crowded room of happy faces, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a revelation I wasn't ready to confront. I sipped my drink slowly, pretending to enjoy it, but the taste was bitter, tainted by the tension I couldn't name aloud. My hands shook slightly, a tremor of fear and anticipation I could not hide. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like the entire room could see the truth lurking behind my eyes, the truth I wasn't ready to admit to myself. And then I saw him, just for a fraction of a second, a figure moving toward us, confident, familiar, yet entirely out of place. My stomach lurched as recognition struck before my brain could process it. The world narrowed, the party fading into a blur around me. The laughter became muffled, the music distant, as I focused on the movement at our table. My heart raced, every beat echoing in my ears, every second stretching into an eternity. I wanted to look away, to pretend it wasn't real, but something rooted me in place, forcing me to witness the approach that would change everything. And as he got closer, every subtle hint, every moment of unease, every pang of doubt coalesced into a single undeniable realization. The tension, the hesitation, the tiny cracks I'd ignored, they weren't in my imagination. My jaw tightened, my hands clenched the glass without thinking. I tried to steady my breathing, but it was useless. The approaching figure carried with him the answer I wasn't ready to hear, the confirmation of every suspicion I had buried deep. And as the distance closed, the last shreds of denial dissolved, leaving nothing but the sharp, sudden clarity that my life was about to shift in ways I could never undo. The moment he reached our table, everything froze in my chest. My mind scrambled, trying to deny the truth, but every instinct screamed it was him. The recognition hit like a physical blow, the confident stride, the casual tilt of his head, the way he smiled, that familiar, unsettling smile. My stomach sank as the room seemed to constrict around us, every laugh and every cheer fading into a dull, mocking hum. I wanted to look away, to pretend my eyes were deceiving me, but I couldn't. I was rooted, unable to tear my gaze from the one person who had been the hidden center of the storm I had refused to acknowledge. Her eyes flicked toward him, and for a fraction of a second, the careful composure she maintained cracked. A fleeting flash of panic crossed her face, quickly replaced by a forced smile, an attempt to act as though nothing was wrong. But I saw it, the hesitation, the subtle shift in posture, the way her hand lingered on mine for reassurance that I could no longer give. My heart pounded in my ears, every beat hammering the reality I had avoided for so long. I realized in that instant that the whispers, the strange absences, the little lies, they all converged here at this table, in front of everyone, undeniable and raw. He leaned slightly, greeting her with a casual familiarity that made my blood run cold. The words didn't matter at first. The presence alone said everything. I could feel the betrayal like a weight pressing down on my chest, suffocating, relentless, impossible to ignore. She laughed at something he said, a laugh that sounded practiced, too bright, too quick, and my stomach twisted in anger and disbelief. How long had this been going on? How many moments had I unknowingly shared with a ghost, while he occupied the space she reserved for secrets? I gritted my teeth, trying to steady the trembling of my hands. The drink I held seemed heavier, almost mocking in its inertia. Every instinct screamed confrontation, yet my mind calculated, weighing the immediate eruption against the careful, devastating precision I could unleash if I waited. I saw him glance at me briefly, a flicker of recognition crossing his features, just enough to confirm he knew the storm he was walking into. And in that brief eye contact, I understood the depth of the deceit. This wasn't a single lapse, a momentary weakness. It was a deliberate, ongoing choice, one that had been hiding in plain sight. The hum of the party returned, faint now, like an echo from another world. I noticed the subtle shifts around the table. Her hands fidgeting, his casual stance, the silent tension vibrating between us. My chest felt tight, my jaw locked, but clarity cut through the haze of betrayal. This was it, the confrontation I had feared, the undeniable truth I had hoped might never appear. Every memory of her warmth, every promise I had held onto, now collided with the sharp edge of reality. And as I watched him lean closer, speaking in a tone too familiar, too intimate, my mind raced with the words I wanted to unleash, the fury I wanted to release, and the heartbreak I had long suppressed. I realized in that moment that nothing would ever feel the same. Not the laughter, not the love, not the life we had built. Everything had shifted, irreversibly, in the space of a single devastating approach. The tension at the table became unbearable, thick like smoke, and every second felt stretched beyond endurance. My chest burned with anger and betrayal, my hands trembling as I tried to steady them on the edge of the table. Her eyes darted to mine, and for the first time, I saw the truth reflected in them. Fear, guilt, the unspoken knowledge that her carefully constructed lies had finally been exposed. I didn't speak immediately. Words seemed too small, too weak to capture the storm raging inside me. Instead, I let my silence do the talking, every glance, every tightening of my jaw, every subtle movement conveying the fury I could barely contain. He leaned slightly, as if trying to bridge some invisible gap, but the space between us was already shattered. His smile faltered when he realized that I wasn't going to let it pass unnoticed. My mind raced through months, even years, replaying moments I had now understood in a painful new light. The dinners, the sudden errands, the secretive phone calls, all pieces of a puzzle I had ignored until they had slapped me in the face. Rage mixed with heartbreak, a bitter cocktail that left me feeling hollow yet electrified, every nerve on fire. Her lips parted, a wordless apology almost escaping, but she caught it, biting it back. I saw the desperation in her posture, the silent pleading to preserve some semblance of normalcy, but there was none. I had reached a limit I hadn't known existed, a line that had been crossed in the quiet betrayals she thought I hadn't noticed. My vision sharpened, and I registered every tiny detail. The way her hand hovered near his, the guilty twitch of her smile, the carefully modulated tone of her voice trying to pretend this was casual. It wasn't casual, it never had been. I couldn't hold back any longer. The words erupted from me, sharp, cutting, precise. How long? The single word hung in the air like a blade. They both froze, the weight of the question forcing truth to the surface. Her eyes watered, her body stiffened, and he shifted uneasily, realizing that the charade had ended. There was no denying it now. Every subtle gesture, every whispered conversation, every hidden moment converged into a moment of undeniable exposure. The anger I felt was a living thing, coiling and uncoiling in my chest, demanding acknowledgement, demanding response. The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum in which every emotion, shock, guilt, betrayal, and humiliation, amplified. I could feel the judgment of invisible eyes, the quiet acknowledgement that the truth had been revealed in a room full of people oblivious to the depth of deception that had existed at their table. She finally whispered something, a feeble excuse, a fragment of denial, but it dissolved against the force of my awareness. I saw her for exactly what she was in that moment, stripped of pretense, fragile, cornered, and entirely human. I leaned back slightly, letting the storm of emotion wash over me, recognizing that nothing would return to the way it had been. This confrontation was both a climax and a turning point. Every breath felt heavy, every heartbeat echoing in the hollowed space between betrayal and clarity. The party continued around us, oblivious, but our world had shifted irrevocably, every second from here on defined by this confrontation and the raw, unfiltered truth it had forced into the open. The weight of what had just happened settled over me like a storm that refused to pass. Every laugh around the table, every clink of glasses, felt distant, meaningless, as if I were existing in a world separate from the one everyone else occupied. I tried to make sense of the chaos inside me, to organize the betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak into something manageable, but it resisted every attempt. The clarity of the moment was sharp and unrelenting. Everything I had believed, every assumption I had made about trust and loyalty, had been stripped away in an instant. She didn't speak much after that, and I didn't expect her to. Her eyes avoided mine, her hands fidgeting with small movements that spoke of regret, shame, and a fragile hope that silence could erase what had been revealed. I realized that the confrontation, the raw exposure of truth, had left us both suspended in a space where nothing could be taken back, nothing could be undone. The affair partner had faded slightly into the background, his presence acknowledged but irrelevant now, a symbol of choices and consequences that were no longer abstract but painfully concrete. My thoughts drifted back over the years we had shared, the smiles, the quiet moments, the promises whispered in moments of intimacy, and the stark contrast struck me with brutal clarity. Every memory now carried an undercurrent of doubt, a shadow of the betrayal that had been hiding beneath the surface. I recognized the naivety I had carried, the selective blindness that had allowed me to ignore the signs, and I felt a bitter mix of anger at her and at myself. The realization that I had loved blindly, that I had invested fully in someone capable of deceit, was almost as painful as the betrayal itself. I reached for my drink, now cold and forgotten, and took a slow, deliberate sip, trying to ground myself. There was no relief, no closure yet, only the beginning of a reckoning that I knew would extend far beyond this table, this party, this moment. I understood that trust, once broken in such a personal and intimate way, could never be restored to its original state. Every interaction, every conversation from here on would carry the residue of this revelation. And yet, amidst the storm of emotions, a strange clarity emerged. A recognition that the ending of this chapter, however painful, opened the door to a future shaped by honesty, by boundaries, by self-preservation. I looked at her one last time, not with accusation, not with pleading, but with a quiet, measured understanding. The love that had once defined us was now tainted, irreparable, yet I felt no desire for melodrama or spectacle. I would leave the party soon, carrying the sharp awareness of what had transpired. The unspoken truth now settled like a stone in my chest. And as I pushed my chair back and stood, I felt the simultaneous weight and relief of liberation. Life had changed irrevocably, but it had also begun anew, defined not by illusion, but by the brutal, unflinching honesty of what had been revealed and the personal strength I would need to move forward.